Hi and welcome to episode 32 of The Party Line. This podcast was recorded on Aboriginal land and we stand in solidarity with our Indigenous brothers and sisters in their struggle against racism and capitalism.
Oh my darling, oh my darling, oh my darling party line. Oh, I never will forsake thee, for I love this life of mine.
Hey guys.
Hi.
Hello.
I've got deja vu.
Yeah, we just fucked up this recording. Although, Omar, you forgot your visual gag.
Oh yeah.
Nah.
I don't think he's on the visual gag this time.
We did like a whole thing. Do you want to do it?
I'll do it.
Okay. No.
Just kidding. I'm really excited about this.
Yeah, Omar's actually excited because, okay, for our audio listeners, Omar's got a one of those cutouts where you put your face through, and it's about
Like
being
a Kodak moment.
Yeah, Kodak moment.
Will any of our listeners know who Kodak is?
Yeah, if they
Yes.
listen to Mr. Worldwide.
Or just like people know what Kodak is.
Okay.
Anyways, it says in solidarity with striking school staff, reduced workloads, only 35% pay rise now. The teachers going on strike.
On Tuesday the 24th.
And the teachers voted to go on strike with a 98% yes rate.
Fuck
Yeah, it was good.
So people are angry and ready to go.
Yeah, let's go.
Shut it down.
So where are we meeting in Melbourne, Omar?
Trades Hall.
At what time?
I think it's at 9:30. I
Yeah.
think the official thing starts at 10. I reckon get there at 9:30.
Look out for a Victorian Socialist in Schools banner and come
Yeah.
march with us.
And there'll be like leafleting, and because one of the main arguments is like one day is not going to be enough, you know. So we're going to be leafleting, trying to let people know that yes, if this is great, but we're going to need to get serious if we're going to get the government to shell out the billions of dollars they have failed to do so far.
Yeah. So we weren't sure if we were going to be able to record the podcast this afternoon because I had to go to the dentist.
Yes, you did.
And I was like, oh yeah, they're just going to put like a little thing on my tooth or whatever. And then the dentist was like, yeah, so
Ba-bow.
you're going to need a crown and the way he said it, and I was like, how much does that cost? He goes, $19.50. And it's like, you could hear that and think
Like
that's
$19.50.
great. But actually, no.
It's like the price of a Big Mac meal or something.
$2,000. And then I said to him, like, is there a low income option? And he said, do you have private health insurance? Which is, I don't think, something that low income people have
It's so out of touch.
access to. But
Classic
anyways,
dentists. Do you guys know what dentists have not been known for historically?
suicide?
Don't they-
Fascism.
Yeah.
Oh.
Wasn't there a whole like measuring brain sizes and skull
Yeah.
things like eugenics?
I think that was like early psychologists, but dentists are very bad people, statistically speaking. Not every dentist. I'm sure there's good ones. Actually, my auntie's a dentist and gave me free dental care the other day, so that was great.
Well,
That's
can
good.
she fix my thing?
I don't know if I can really ask like all my friends. But hey, yeah, so $2,000. Annika needs $2,000. This is a good reason.
I feel like we have done too many pleas for money just
yeah,
for me.
but like this
so-
is real. Like it's
Anyways,
no
no,
bullshit.
it'll be fine. So
But it's an example of how Australia does not have fucking universal healthcare.
Totally.
Yeah. This is essential healthcare.
agree. Dental
$2,000
on Medicare.
Bang, just like that. You're just living your life and then you get told, oh, we need $2,000 please for
Yeah.
essential
Yeah.
healthcare.
luxury bones.
So the episode today is going to be all about imperialism. When I was sick, you guys did an episode with Jasmine about the war in Iran.
It's pretty good.
Yeah, you
I
guys
had
did
some
a
feedback.
really good job. Yeah.
People really like Jasmine.
I really like Jasmine, so
Yeah,
we're
so,
peas
you
in a
know.
pod with the audience. I had some
There
feedback.
could be some shuffling going on.
Oh, well, that's fine. If you want to kick me out, like you can
No, maybe,
do all the
maybe I would go.
introduction.
Maybe I would go.
But yes, we want to talk about the sort of the theory behind war. So why does capitalism need constant war? So that's what this episode's going to be about.
And half the reason we're doing it is we got a jingle
We have a jingle from our friend Joshua Nichols.
Yep.
from WA. Yep, so thanks, Josh.
Shout out to him.
And the other half is that we got told many months ago that the way to go viral is to do random theory clips.
Random theory clips.
So this is our first attempt at a random theory clip.
Hopefully we're smart enough for people to want us to go viral.
Like we'll be the next ContraPoints.
That's right.
Which I've never
Did
watched.
you just learn about that today?
I learned about that in our first intro. We shouldn't get recorded. Yeah.
So before we get on to that, I actually have some really groundbreaking and important news to share with you guys,
I'm excited
Cool.
for this.
Just keep it tight.
which is that When you do shit like that, it's impossible to keep it tight, actually.
Sorry.
So
Go on.
I think that it's really important that people know that there's a shoe problem in Washington.
I don't think it's a problem. I think it's quite great, actually.
So Donald Trump is buying like his cabal, his coterie of advisors and supporters.
Cabal.
He's buying them the same pair of shoes. They're $145 pair of Florsheim
Which is great.
shoes.
I've literally never had a pair of shoes even worth half of that.
That's okay. We all make it sometime at one point in our lives.
Do we?
You'll get there. But
Yeah,
the
one
best,
day Donald Trump
That's
will
the
buy
capitalist
you
myth, I
shoes.
think. I don't know if we believe in that.
the best thing about Shoegate, though, is that
Shoegate.
Trump is either guessing the size of people's shoes, or people are too afraid to say what their real shoe size is,
Yeah.
because otherwise Trump will, lambast them for having small feet, because you know what a small foot
Yeah.
says about a man.
And Trump's got really big hands. So,
Remember that chant we did? Hands too small, can't build a wall, can't build the wall. Hands too small.
Unfortunately, he did build the wall.
He did build the wall.
Yeah.
That's right.
So did Biden.
But
So did Obama.
I just think the picture of Marco Rubio walking around with a pair of shoes too big for him is really
It's
fantastic.
comical.
And when I was looking at this tweet, it brought to mind a quote from Hannah Arendt about how violence happens, how people come to violence. And she says that it's waning and impotent power that most readily sort of moves to violence. And I think Rubio's feet is,
What
is an
perfect
example of that.
symbolism.
Yeah. And check out Annika's brain, just like ripping off Hannah Arendt in her free time.
Well, it's because I've been preparing for Marxism conference, which is taking place over the Easter weekend. And
Which is how long away now?
I don't want to talk about it very soon.
It's too soon.
But if people want to grab a ticket, there'll be a lot of interesting, smart, engaging talks, and then there'll be us.
Yeah, talking absolute nonsense.
So we're going to be doing a Party Line Live episode at the Marxism conference. There's also going to be a Red Flag Radio Live.
Maybe some crossover content.
Yeah, maybe we can do a walk-on. Is that what they call it in a play?
Or like a rap battle.
A rap battle. I'm not doing a rap battle.
A mashup.
Okay, so for some serious content, there's some headlines that we wanted to go through. The first one's from our friends at Deep Cut News.
Yes, which is they've done a story on this on the original version of this too, but it is a pro-Israel WhatsApp group boasts campaign win against Grace Tame.
Yeah, so it's like this massive kind of campaign group chat of right-wingers attacking Grace Tame. And it's come out that they also have been behind coordinated campaigns against people like Francesca Albanese.
Mm-hmm.
So she was doing a speaking engagement at Adelaide University. It's she is the UN.
Yeah.
I was shocked when I saw this article because I can't believe Deep Cut would run an article targeting this WhatsApp group like this. Just everyday citizens going about their life, and then they get
Doxing
exposed
this
the
WhatsApp
media.
Group.
Oh, it's just disgusting.
Crazy. It's pretty outrageous. The last one, they attacked Clementine Ford.
Yeah.
A bunch of other people.
They got her banned from Instagram, right?
Yeah, I don't know if that was them. I think that was Instagram.
But probably a lot of people putting complaints and stuff to
probably,
trigger things like that.
Yeah, wouldn't surprise me. I just read there was 5,000 emails that this WhatsApp group
Far out.
sent to cancel things.
Yeah, and it's just the ongoing thing about Grace Tame. We talked about it a couple of episodes ago. They're happy to make Grace Tame this picture, perfect spokesperson, drag her out. But as soon as she starts to have political opinion, it's
Good political opinion.
Don't challenge the empire.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, this one is from The Guardian, and it's about the role that AI has played in destroying the world, basically. So these aren't AI firms, they're defense contractors. We can't let them hide behind their models.
Yeah, it's a good article exploring the role of AI in modern warfare. And part of it is that there's so much data now. It's a kind of cliche of just daily life. But then, of course, the military agencies have more data than anyone. So they know where everyone is. They tap into everyone's phones, etc. And it's too much to process. So they filter everything through AI. And all the targets in the Gaza war and now in Iran and Lebanon are being developed by AI algorithms, filtering through all the information and proposing here are the targets we think are the most prominent, most important, most likely to have bad people in them. and that's where the decisions are made. And we know that AI can't do the most basic maths. They get facts wrong. They invent court cases. Like like this is not reliable technology.
The one about the court case was awesome.
Yeah.
Filed like document after document after document of like fake court case.
So,
so good.
that's probably what's behind like the bombing of the school.
Yeah.
I mean, the school used to be a part of the Revolutionary Guard, complex. It was separated off like 10 years ago, and probably AI just fucked it up like they fuck up everything. So it's pretty incredible that these companies are profiting and integrating themselves into the military industrial complex when they can't even get basic facts right for Google searches.
Yeah, because like at the end of the day, they're not profitable companies. They only can make money to like they're huge companies, but they're not very profitable. So they get all these contracts with the Department of Defense, the Department of War. They get access to all of that data, and then they sell that data, and then they do just fucked stuff. And we have it here as well. We have Palantir's data mining provisions with the Department of Defense in Australia, and it's just getting worse and worse, I guess.
Speaking of Palantir, have people seen this clip from Alex Karp, the Palantir CEO?
What's so far happening in Iran, you see one society just totally dominating. That's our society. Now, you could get into. I'm always in fights with my intellectual friends about it. They're like, but wouldn't it be better to have a law-based system where everyone is equal? Yeah, sure, in theory. But in this world, it's us or China or Russia.
Yeah.
And I don't know how you guys feel about those decisions.
So he goes on to say, I literally believe we're doing the work of a higher purpose.
A higher purpose by making sure, and not just for America, but for the whole world, that we are the power that actually has the decisive vote. And there is only one way to do that, and that is with military superiority.
So, like Palantir CEO sees the role that this disgusting tech company has played in murdering, 1,000 people in Iran as the hand of God.
Well, it fits with like that picture of everyone praying around Trump.
Yeah.
Like this is the kind of caliber of people who are running America right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he's not even framing it like installing democracy in the Middle East.
No, it's just like, this is dominance.
Yeah.
But hey, Alex, like he's a friend of the show now. He's been on like every app for the past month. I reckon it's time to like pay it back, Give us some cashola. We'll create a new category for you on Patreon.
He's really overtaken Chip LeGrand as like the punch bag of the podcast.
You can pay a bargain basement $1 million a month and we will mention you on every episode. Free advertising.
That's right.
I mean, his output's just higher. Maybe he's more productive because of AI.
Well, Chip's writing books that no one's reading, so he's busy.
I feel like we should do a poll about like who's more fascistic in the tech world. Is it Elon Musk or is it Alex Karp?
It's Alex. It's got to be like at least. Yeah, no, actually.
It's because it's hard because
Elon Musk is
he's like created like a network of like fascist young men online. I mean, I guess like the targeting is it's hard.
I mean, but like
I guess they're in their lane.
¿Por qué no los dos?
What is it? Elon's just like manufacturing the consent or whatever. So I mean,
not just that. I mean, he's building all the rockets and stuff,
and like the Starlink,
and whatever. They're just like they're both the same.
But speaking of fascists, this continues on our sort of like trend of looking at the fascist content that's posted by American government Twitter pages. Back to Elon Musk. This one is like a sort of, it looks like a nice travel poster from maybe the 1930s. Says free ticket home, $2,600 exit bonus, and take advantage of the historic home deal we're offering today. A free flight home to your country. So what they're saying is like, we fucking get out of our country. We'll give you a sign-on bonus if you leave. It's like... It's horrific. The targeting of migrants in America is just getting out of control.
Yeah,
it's disgusting.
It's a very bad government.
Well, that's one way of putting it.
That's what I think. It's a kind of radical statement that we're known for on this show.
Certainly.
It's theory time with the party line.
Wow, that's
It's actually so good.
it's good.
Dude.
Fucking awesome.
So thanks so
Josh.
much, Josh, for that. So, like we said, it's theory time. It's time to talk about what's behind war in capitalism. And I actually think that we could...
Is it the lizard people?
No, but I think this is for me, imperialism today. Where's the
Oh,
sound?
no, you have to
I have
play
to
it
do
on
it.
yours. I have a funny video to play after this as
Okay,
well.
so this is imperialism today.
Maximum lethality, not tepid legality. Violent effect, not politically correct.
Hegseth is...
Maximum lethality.
He's been working with Eminem.
Okay, so...
So slam poet Hegseth
Oh,
gives
no, I
us
don't
an
have it.
insight.
Damn it. There's a bit where, you know how he does the, like, headlines? Like, with his hands?
War widening. Iran shrinking, going underground. Mideast war intensifies. Iran increasingly desperate.
Yeah.
That's what what's his name did, Michael, in the Office.
Oh,
He does the same, like the exact same thing.
getting his cues from
Yeah.
Peak America. Oh, well, yeah, the American version.
Here's your headline. Scranton Paper Company, Dunder Mifflin, apologizes to valued client. Some companies still know how business is done.
Terrible. That is another version of imperialism, cultural imperialism.
Shocking. Probably the worst aspect of it, really.
Okay, but to dig into it, so there's a lot of like questioning about like why does war happen? Is it just the thing about Trump is a mad king who's lost his way and just wants to go crazy? Is it about the personal capacity of someone? Is it just things like get pushed too far and then things break out and it all breaks loose and no one can put the genie back into the bottle?
Or just like the oil companies or
the lobby
the
groups.
military companies.
And so it's not to say that those things aren't a factor, but I think if you just sort of tried to pick and choose one of those things, you'd be lost in a sort of quagmire of what the fuck's going on in the world. But I think it's much better to sort of think about imperialism and war as a key dynamic of capitalism, and it's inherently linked to competition as one of the like driving forces of the world system that we live in today.
Yeah, because like the kind of classical theory of capitalism is like, there's companies competing over market share and they compete through quality of products, they compete through the price of products, and they compete through, keeping costs down, i.e. like exploiting workers or finding cheap resources. But then when you zoom out and you get to a global stage, competition isn't just like free and fair kind of competition between capitalist businesses that are just like offering slightly different products or slightly cheaper products or whatever. But it's actually like these confrontations between entire blocks of big capital backed up by governments, and so imperialism therefore is just like capitalist competition at a global scale using governments as the vehicles and armies as the vehicles, not just marketing departments and HR departments and stuff like that. One easy way of looking at it, I guess.
Yeah, and like sanctions and whatever. Because like if you think about the logical conclusion of competition, it's just monopoly. And then, once you've monopolized everything, you can't just sit down and be happy with that. You've got to still make your profit. So yeah, the logical conclusion is intervening in other states, which are just, again, monopolies of profit.
Yeah, totally. So I think the thing about competition, you can't stop competing because there's always going to be rivals, and that's true on a business level and it's true on a state level. And I think one of the things about sort of capitalism, the way that it developed, is very quickly as capitalism nestled itself all across the globe, the question of internal economies and nation states became to be very much interlinked. And so I think on an international scale, competition between countries has to be displayed. It has to be sort of seen through the lens of war. And then there's a question of like, what are they competing over? Because it's pretty clear in like an economy, you're competing over market share. You're competing over, who's going to have the most factories, who's going to innovate the quickest, etc. But like then what are states competing over? a multitude of things. One being trade routes as a pretty recent sort of example, like we've seen through the question of the Strait of Hormuz, like that trade route is central to the global economy. Who controls that actually can have a lot of power.
Yeah, totally. And one of the other main ones is off the coast of China, right? The South China Sea.
Yeah.
I forget what it's called.
Just that.
Yeah.
No, but there's a strait.
Oh, sure.
Anyway, to get out of it, I think it's between the Philippines and another country. And that, like, it's from China, obviously. So it's like an enormous proportion of world trade. So these are real choke points.
The other one being the Panama Canal.
Yeah,
and
that's right.
this is
Suez
one of
or
the Suez Canal, exactly. These canals that America recently has been sort of saying they want to have more dominance over. We gave it to them too cheap. We need to get it back.
Exactly.
Or Greenland as another example.
Not really a trade route, but
it will become one when the ice caps melt.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. But so that's the thing. Like, these things can be invisible when things are functioning normally, and so for everyday people, we don't think about it that much. But like the job of imperialist strategists is to think, okay, well, when shit hits the fan like it is now, where are the places that matter, and how do we make sure we control them? And this is Iran's kind of counter strategy to America is by like disrupting this thing. So it's very embarrassing for America. It was a fundamental thing that you have to be able to do to fight Iran is to keep this channel open. Similarly with the Chinese canals in the Eastern Pacific and so on. So these are very important things to control because they're like the veins of the whole global market.
I think another thing that states are competing over is resources and markets.
Yeah.
And I think, they can go together and also be separate. A whole bunch of sort of the like early imperialist sort of neo-colonialism was about getting access to things like rare earth metals, access to water supplies. So a whole bunch of China's sort of Belt and Road project has been about access to water. It's quite an important question.
Or in very early stages, like access to labor as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the other thing is just markets. Like if you're a commodity producing nation, you need to have somewhere where you can send out all of the commodities that you've produced so that you don't flood your internal market as well.
Yeah. So like America's done this historically by saying, well, you can't sell cars in America unless you produce X percentage of them here. Europe does the same thing. So it's about protecting your own market and then forcing others to open theirs up to your products as well. Yeah.
But then a big part of it, because, I think resources is like a very important question, but sometimes countries that have a lot of one resource still have to compete with their rivals over that very same resource. So the prime example is oil. Right now, this is like a dominating question in the news right now because the oil price has just shot up. America is a big producer of oil,
the biggest.
So then I think this relates to what's the other thing they're competing over? It's power and dominance in their own region and then also globally.
Yeah, that's right. And sometimes even if you have more than you need of a resource, like China has way more rare earths than they need. Yeah. But by developing a monopoly over it, you can control the whole world economy in a specific way. It gives you leverage. And so America's vision and, well, its whole practice really for the whole 20th century was control the Middle East, dominate Saudi Arabia, well, not dominate, work with Saudi Arabia, develop the Gulf states, Iran under the Shah, like we talked about last week. Because if you control the oil, you control the whole economy. And so that's not to say that America wants the oil. And that's not to say that the oil is the only thing that governs American foreign policy, because so often wars are reduced to like single resources or whatever. But it's a major factor because oil and fossil fuels generally are still the engine of the world economy. One of the things that could be changing as a result of this, you would think, but still for now, are absolutely a vital part of anything that goes on in most places.
Yeah, and like you can have a complete monopoly over one particular thing, like Australia does when it comes to uranium, for example. Like this is where uranium lives. But then, we still intervene in our Pacific neighbors about like over oil, like bugging meeting rooms and whatever and doing all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And we do that ourselves.
Like Australia literally redrew the like maritime borders of Australia to and East Timor to make sure that they controlled the shoal gas Shoal oil, anyways.
Yeah.
Offshore gas
Offshore
fields.
gas fields
Yeah.
in the ocean.
So we get half of the profits, even though we're not at all
Yeah, it's
deserving
not
of
ours.
that. Well, not we, like the Australian government. Yeah.
Totally. So nations are competing all the time. And so sometimes it happens through like the kind of process of, like they call it soft power, generally not super soft.
No.
Like the free trade agreements that are, designed by powerful, wealthy countries to force, smaller countries to, like Omar said before, open their markets, give up resources, etc. And then other times it's through violence writ large on a massive scale. And so I think what we've sort of talked about, gone through like the different things they're competing over, the relationship between companies and markets and states and militaries, it shows us that imperialism isn't just like a set of policies. It's not just like, America, like white papers that get white paper, defense papers, whatever, they get put out, sort of talk about what's the approach. Even if they didn't put out those sets of approaches, policies, papers, I think we have to see that it's imperialism is the inherent logic of like the international political capitalist world system.
Yeah, and it's also why, like, there's a lot of countries that are labeled as being like anti-imperialist.
Yeah.
But we see them doing the exact same things, like competing. Like the logical conclusion of competition by, doing their own, whether it be not exactly sanctions, but like, the targeting of other countries, or oil companies and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. And so like, it's not just America, even though America is the kind of dominant global power and the most aggressive as a result of that. They have the most capacity and they've done the most terrible things. But it's like, everybody would like to be America, And it's like, it's not like Germany or France are just thinking, oh, we really love the fact that we're like medium-sized powers. Yeah. No, they wish they could be big. China obviously wishes it could be the top dog. Vladimir Putin definitely wishes he was the top dog. Like, it's just the sort of logic of the thing that the more dominant you are, the more money you can make for your capital, i.e. like with a big C, your country, your country's rich, the more you can dominate over international institutions. So it's just an inherent logic that flows from the competition. And so, China is the other, like America's the dominant one. China's sort of the rising one. It's still coming from a long way back compared to America. Like America has like 800 foreign bases. China has, I think, 3 if you squint. But, they're rising. And that sort of dynamic is shaping a lot of what's happening globally. Yeah.
Yeah, they might not have as many like military bases, but they've got, ownership of, a lot of African economies and
ports.
Yeah, ports in Australia, no less. And
not for long, I'd say.
We'll find out soon.
If the capitalists have their way, yeah.
Yeah, but they're intervening in an imperialist manner, no different to America, except of the bombs and stuff, I guess also. But, they're a supplier of weapons to countries that are doing the bombs. So,
like Russia, and Ukraine.
So it is the logic of capitalism, and it's not just a policy, and there can be quite like sort of illogical from the standpoint of the human experience, reasons to go to war, but logical from the standpoint of, competition and people, states fighting to be big players. But I think it is worth saying that even if there is an inherent and eternal logic to something, wars don't often always go the way that the countries plan on them going. So here's an example from 2003.
Major combat operations in Iraq have ended. In the Battle of Iraq, the United States and our allies have prevailed. Because of you, the tyrant has fallen and Iraq is free.
So after 2003, how much longer did the war go for?
18 years?
A couple days.
18.
I think it's 18 years.
Well, they say
when did the war
2011 was the official withdrawal of troops from Iraq.
Didn't Trump end that war?
They still go on. The Iraq has the biggest American like base in the region. I think like it's fucking massive.
I was watching the Dick Cheney movie, the movie about Dick Cheney, Vice. Christian Bale stars, the one where he thanked Satan for the inspiration for playing the character. But I mean, that is an example. It's a really good movie, I reckon, if you want to get a bit of a sense of like what does it look like when America decides to go to war, and it's like a bunch of these evil men concocting, basically different reasons for why they're allowed to go into war. And in the fallout is the deaths of probably 1 million civilians, probably more if you count the people who have continued to suffer, problems or whatever from the experience of the war, the destruction of economies, etc. But I guess one of the things about it is it feels like a distant time that you can sort of think of like, oh, it's interesting when they did that. They had to get approval from the the UN to do that. They don't need to do that anymore.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, yeah. The other thing is like, so that's that's America. America can sort of do that.
Sure.
And that's why they're sort of a global, unique global power. Then there's China that's like rising. Then there's a whole other category of countries that I think people tend to only understand in a kind of simplistic way, like France, Germany, the UK, Australia.
Like in terms of their relationship to another country.
Japan, South Korea. Like often these countries are called kind of part of the US axis or whatever, and they are. But they also have independent agendas. And we talked about Australia's kind of last week. We don't need to do that again. But basically the thing about imperialism is not that like one country just tells everyone else what to do, but it's just that everything's a balance of forces kind of thing. And what can you get out of it? What are you going to lose? So Australia benefits from being part of the US axis. Sometimes we're not all in, like the current Iran war thing. Like we're sort of getting drawn in, but like clearly Albanese doesn't want to be fully drawn in. Yeah. Other times we're just like, nah, let's fucking bomb some Iraqis and occupy their country for 10 years and whatever. So it's a judgment call, but they have their own agendas and those agendas interests. Line up. Yeah.
So where America can just sort of get away with doing whatever the fuck it wants in the entire world. So whether that's kidnapping Nicolas Maduro from Venezuela or, sending in bombers into Iran and destroying, the country there, regional powers can also get away with stuff in their own spaces. So Geordie raised the example of the Australian government, spying on foreign leaders, but also participating in the put downs of rebellions and uprisings, sending AFP troops to train, government police forces, etc.
Vietnam.
Yeah, exactly. But then obviously there's another regional power, which is Russia, which has basically gotten away with an invasion of Ukraine. And then there's China, which is obviously its own sort of regional power as well. So we have, is it a multipolar world? Kind of, in that sense. Like America isn't just able to impact everything about global politics and war and the global economy.
Yeah. I mean, because we mentioned kind of traditional powers, but then there's like newer ones like Brazil, South Korea, Iran itself, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, which are traditionally not like major players. Traditionally, they were, they were very oppressed nations till the kind of middle of last century. But they've developed and they've risen, and in uneven ways. And it's still like a lot of people in those countries are very poor. But the state itself has got enough sort of wealth and capacity that it can now throw its weight around at a regional level. And so, like Iran and Saudi Arabia and Israel obviously is in this category as well. Like they do a lot at a regional level to shape the Middle East. South Africa, is a very powerful player in the politics of Southern Africa, more broadly.
Or India as a major player.
India, and Brazil in Latin America. So these are kind of mid-level players. They can't shape the whole world dynamic, as you said, but they can have a real impact on what goes on locally. And so then their relationship to the bigger players becomes very kind of pragmatic. So you see them play both sides, trying to work out who's going to benefit them more. They go out off the chain a little and they kind of pull back. So again, it's a very complicated picture. And when people just reduce things to like, oh, they're someone's proxy or they're whatever, it doesn't work like that. Everyone's got their own agendas.
Yeah, and you can see them sometimes form their own regional blocks like the EU or BRICS or whatever to protect, profit, like their own profit competing with profit elsewhere. But that's just like competition is the underlying thing. So it's just always going to fail. There's that really good Mussolini quote.
Really good?
Yeah, it's really in Ben Hillier's article. Where is it? Mussolini. What's it? The league is very well when sparrows shout, but no good when all eagles fall out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So at certain points, the attempts to maintain sort of peace through economic cooperation,
International law.
it just, and we're seeing that today, all of this
Totally.
just falls apart because we come back to that thing about competition being the sort of internal, like the main dynamic. I mean, in the early stages of the 20th century or the end of the 19th, there was, debates in sort of left spheres about, is competition actually and profit making gonna mean that countries don't want to go to war with each other anymore because, if you go to war, then you're not going to be able to sell your products, etc. I mean, then World War I happened.
Yeah. Exactly. Then World War II. Then,
but then Hart and Negri reprised that theory.
Oh yeah.
In the 90s and early 2000s, they wrote a book called Empire, which argued that basically capital was too important and world trade was too entrenched that there could never be serious wars again.
Yeah.
And this got popularized by other people. I don't think this was them. They said that no two countries with McDonald's had ever gone to war, but then the Iraq War. Then Iraq did have a McDonald's. Yeah.
So
that wasn't a very good theory.
There's global powers and there's regional powers. But then, there's other smaller nations which they don't have big economies. They don't have big armies, and they're less able to impact the politics of their regions. But that doesn't mean that the sort of ruling class and the capitalist class that are internal to that country don't have imperialist sort of sights or aims for the country that they run. And so then can ally themselves to different regional players in order to maximize their profits and their power.
Yeah. So the way that a lot of the left has developed their understanding of world politics is that there's powerful countries and they're bad, and then there's weak countries and they're good. But I think the point that you just made, Annika, is weak countries exploit their own working classes. They destroy their own local environments for profit, etc. All the usual things that every capitalist do. And then they're also depending on their size, trying to find a niche within the world system, which gives them some influence, and just how can I best serve the bigger powers and how can I play a role? So they're always looking to that. And I think in that sense, it's not that every country is imperialist, but there's no good countries. You know, that's the point of this, is that there's no country, there's no capitalist class anywhere that runs a country that is looking out for its people or international peace or anything like that. They're all just in it for themselves and their rich mates.
Yeah, just because you're a bit shitter at something doesn't make you inherently good and anti that.
Yeah,
something.
they're late developing. Yeah. They don't have the resources,
or they've been victims of colonialism and
sanctions
imperialism.
Or whatever.
Which means that they haven't been able to build up their economies in the way that obviously they would have liked. But I think one of the points that's quite important in terms of how do these countries begin to develop and create riches for the ruling class, well, usually it relies on extreme oppression of the internal population. So the destruction of union rights, the jailing of leftists and activists. And this is important as well because I think because the fact that a lot of these countries were victims of colonialism means that they had anti-colonial movements. And so they were infused with a sort of quasi sort of socialist, Stalinist, third worldist kind of political worldview, which people today can see as, well, that's a socialist country.
Yeah.
And so I think, we're critical of that perspective, not because we think, these countries should be oppressed or something like that, but because it's important that politics matters. And, socialism is not a oppressive nation. It's working class people actually liberating themselves.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. And not in the interests of just a national ruling class or whatever. Look at even most recently Burkina Faso, getting rid of the French influence and whatever, and then immediately criminalizing homosexuality.
Yeah, and then there's a tier below even that, which are just broken countries that are going to be broken as long as capitalism exists, like East Timor, Lebanon, El Salvador, Honduras, these parts of the world that just for whatever reason, how they've been structured, how they were set up, how they've been oppressed, you just can't imagine a situation under capitalism were they ever going to go forward.
Mm.
And so like that's just a reality of capitalism and its development, that there's just some parts of the world that are just cast aside. And like a lot of Africa is in this category, actually. Like a lot of African nations, they were just ravaged by slavery, by colonialism. The resource extraction that goes on there is so kind of unequal and extractive that it's just like impossible to see kind of nations developing in the normal way that has occurred in the countries that were earlier developing and not colonized, you know. So that's just another argument to be a revolutionary socialist, because there's no moderate way of fixing these structural inequalities. They're just kind of built in to the way the world works.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I was going to say, you can see kind of maybe India becoming that, like developing and whatever, but that's kind of an exception to all the other countries.
Yeah, and I think part of the thing about India was that it's a massive landmass, huge population, and like the British suppressed their like industry, but then also the internal sort of like bourgeoisie inside India were able to develop at the same time. And so, you know, India has a huge amount of poverty, but it also has quite a big sort of research and development sort of part of the economy. It's a nuclear power. So it's...
And it's like an imperial power in its own. Exactly, like it's got all these... If you go east from India towards Nepal and stuff, there's like all these oppressed nations that are built in, and then there's Kashmir.
That's right.
And then there's probably other groups. Like I'm not an expert on Indian politics, but there's numerous national groupings in India that are oppressed, and it was set up that way when the Indians won liberation from the British. They deliberately expanded beyond what was like kind of sort of legit their territory. Yeah,
and then also so did their capitalists. Like look at Adani.
That's right.
Yeah, South Africa with the Guptas and everything. Like they're doing great.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's an important point, like some of the stuff that, you know, thinking through the role of India in its region and the like, because I think another kind of common conception of imperialism is that it's like decisions made by fat old white guys in suits in boardrooms, but actually there's a global sort of imperial, there's a global ruling class, which means that there are imperialists, people who engage in, you know, the oppression of the Kurds or the Kashmiris or etc., who are not just white guys in suits. They're, you know,
brown guys in suits.
That's right. Yeah. I'm glad you said that.
And they're competing with each other.
Yeah, that's right.
So Marxist theory has been, you know, has grappled with this question of war and confrontation from the get-go. So early on, Marx developed the sort of understanding of capitalist competition, and also the sort of understanding that capitalism as a system had to become global in order for it to succeed, because it is an expansionist and accumulatory, if you can say that word, system. It has to keep pushing out. And then, as I said, sort of in the 19th and 20th century, because the global economy was properly sort of just taken over by capitalism, it pushed out feudalism, it pushed out sort of the old sort of forms of organizing its society, whatever. Then we get onto the question of, okay, so now these states have to compete with one another. And one of the early sort of Marxists that grappled with the question of, you know, this new imperialism was Bukharin, who was a member of the Bolshevik Party in Russia. And some of the stuff that he wrote was really useful and helped develop Lenin's theory of imperialism, where he sort of basically just, you know, he popularized it.
Yeah. Got the spark notes.
But it's worth saying, I remember from a long time ago, like in Capital, Marx has like a big section on it. I just want to read it because I think it really disproves the idea that Marxism is sort of Eurocentric and never thought about this stuff. Marx wrote, "The discovery of gold and silver in America, the extirpation, enslavement, and entombment in minds of the Aboriginal people, the beginning of the conquest and looting of the East Indies, the turning of Africa into a warren for the commercial hunting of black skins, signaled the rosy dawn of the era of capitalist production. These idyllic proceedings are the chief moments of primitive accumulation." So this is Marx, you know, at his savage imperialist best. And this is in like what's often presented in universities as a sort of dry academic analysis of the economy. It's actually a strong anti-capitalist, anti-imperial statement all the way through.
Absolutely. So then capitalism required basically large firms inside into like one country to be able to be backed up and supported by a state, a nation state. So the nation state is really like the major development for, capitalism becoming this global system. And so early on, like large firms, they engaged in like different things. Like, they had, secret, like not secret, like mafia style sort of beating up, your
like cartel like.
Yeah. So you beat up the workers, or you go engage in industrial espionage, or you just steal resources. But eventually it's like you can't just have sort of company based militias. You need states to be able to do that.
Yeah. I mean, like a lot of, the UK's colonial enterprises were, and the Netherlands as well. That's Dutch, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I always get them confused. Anyway, the companies were actually some of the main ones, like on the front lines of those struggles. Like they would go out, look for things, buy people off,
like
murder
the East
people.
India Company.
Exactly. And in some ways they were like bigger than the government, like in the colonies.
Yeah.
But then, like the more that other countries and companies rose, you would then have skirmishes between these different companies. Like who's going to run this very lucrative part of America or India or Indonesia or whatever. And then suddenly the power of the militaries behind these companies become decisive because, like we know, contracts are not worth the paper they're written on unless they're backed up by a force that can enforce them. And, in the Wild West, from the capitalist point of view of the Asian area, the Africa's colonies, like basically might makes right. And so the states develop in order to back up their growing kind of colonial endeavors.
Yeah. And like, I think like those companies doing their like corporate espionage stuff, like they still do that. Like every day, like Woolies literally buys massive blocks of land where, Coles might be able to pop up a shop and just like hold that land.
Or like on like a global scale, like there's BlackRock.
Yeah.
Or like, these companies, these mercenary groups that go into African countries and take control over the gold production. Usually, but I mean, even these kind of organizations and institutions are tied to states. So, Russia, has come in and sort of pushed out, or, French or
like
whatever.
With the
it's like
Wagner group and everything.
Exactly.
Or it works the other way around where like the government goes in and does a deal with like China with the Belt and Road. We'll lend you $500 billion to build a port in somewhere, but in the meantime, and in the process, we're going to employ Chinese capitalists to do all the work. Chinese workers are going to come do all the work. Chinese providers are going to provide. So like this is not going to have any positive impact on your economy whatsoever. Basically, the diplomacy is about subsidizing Chinese capitalists.
Totally.
In an area of work they wouldn't have had otherwise. And America used to do this back when it was more generous with the Marshall Plan and all that.
They just did it in Venezuela. They literally just did it moments ago for the oil
That's right.
American oil companies.
That's right.
Or like,
but like the Marshall Plan, like they basically rebuilt Europe, which was all for the benefit of America because they knew we're producing all this stuff, and we got nowhere to sell it. So we need the economy. We need the economies of Europe to buy it back.
I mean, the other sort of example, and done in a really brutal fashion, going back to Dick Cheney in the Iraq War, was American corporations were given contracts, defense contracts. Both in terms of the production of weaponry, but then also the thing about going in and, increasing production in, like, doing the contracts to rebuild, in quotation marks, Iraq. And so one of the big examples is Halliburton, which Dick Cheney was the CEO of before he became George W.'s VP running mate. They were given $39.5 billion in Iraq-related contracts. And there was no bidding.
So they were just the best company for the job.
They just gave it.
They were good. They were a really efficient company.
And I think one of the points that's important as well is that, like, in the sort of 2000s and late 90s, you sort of referred to it before about there was these new theories about what's going to happen now that we live in a globalized world. And, you know, there's not just companies in one country. There's multinational, transnational, multinational corporate. And so people thought the role of the state was going to diminish in some fashion.
Companies would run the world. Companies and NGOs. That was the theory I was taught.
But no major corporation can be unmoored from its sort of nation state.
Yeah.
You know, we know about, American steel or, Japanese cars or Australian iron ore or whatever. Like,
It's hard to unmoor that. Yeah.
These companies, as much as they operate on a multinational scale, they still have really, really important connections to their countries. And most of the time, the multinational aspect of it is so that they don't have to pay taxes in their home
Yeah, so they're all
country.
based in Ireland now, I think. Yeah. Or even the American ones. Yeah.
So back to Bukharin. I think this quote is a bit of a useful summation of sort of what we've been talking about. It says, when competition has finally reached its highest stage, then the use of state power and the possibilities connected with it begin to play a very large part. War in capitalist society is only one of the methods of capitalist competition, when the latter extends to the sphere of the world economy. This is why war is an imminent law of a society producing goods under the pressure of the blind laws of a spontaneously developing world market. And I think that connects to the thing about capitalism is actually an anarchic, crazy fucking system. You know, everyone's just producing so they can make money. Well, that means that anarchy of the market is going to explode in different fashions.
And that fashion is inevitably going to be war.
Yeah. And we see it domestically, like the state develops all this brutality towards unionists and to crush striking workers. Like, that's not the free market, you know.
Yeah.
Ronald Reagan, Mr. Free Market, at the same time destroying trade unions in America.
Yeah.
Like, there's always been a contradiction at the heart of competition. They say it's purely economic, all choice related, like no force. But then in reality, there's always been force at a local level, from police, from whatever, military at extreme times. But then at a global level, it's the same. So, you know, you have free trade, whatever, but then everyone's always trying to subsidize their own companies behind the scenes. When that's not working, maybe then you start putting tariffs on other countries. When that's not working, maybe you sanction them. When that's not working, maybe you do a cartel. When that doesn't work, maybe you go to war. You know, like, these are all on a spectrum of possibilities, but there's never been pure economic competition. It's just, it's an absolute myth. It's a libertarian kind of fantasy.
And then I think in terms of those different possibilities, the spectrum of possibilities, I think it is important really to talk about war in its like most human terms, because you can say competition, like war is just competition on a global scale. And it's like, so what does that mean for ordinary human beings? Well, it means like in Tehran, when they bomb the oil refinery, whatever, people are...
Or the school.
Yeah, like there's acid rain falling down on people that's going to cause cancers for decades and decades. There's the genocide in Gaza. There's the million civilians killed in the war on Iraq. There's the Holocaust. There's, it goes on and on and on.
The elimination of Uyghurs in China. It's like the occupation of Ukraine that goes on for up to 5 years now. Like, every country's trying to do it. Like the destruction of Georgia, a few years ago by Russia. Like, it's just the world is a chessboard. And we are like invisible dust on the chessboard.
Yeah, we're not even pawns.
Yeah,
like.
we're not the pawns. Countries are pawns. We're just like the human dust,
That's right. And then there's like, what is everything leading towards? I mean, World War III is gonna fucking happen. Like, there's gonna be a point where China and America both manage to build up their munitions capabilities beyond the point of just they've only got enough bullets to fight for 30 days or whatever. And, this competition is going to have to express itself on a global scale at some point. And so what's going to happen to ordinary people in the midst of that? Well, you're going to be bombed, or you're going to be a soldier that's forced to go fight in that war.
Yeah. 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 When you think about it at that scale, it becomes like extremely urgent, and like Lenin's writings, like Bukharin wrote a really good book about this. Lenin also wrote one about imperialism around the same time, a bit more for like a public audience. And his argument was basically like, the only way to stop war is to stop capitalism.
Yeah.
Like there are wars you can stop short of stopping capitalism, like the Vietnam War, whatever. Like there are some kind of peripheral wars or wars that they're always brutal, but they're not necessarily like at the core of what the system needs to survive, even if they're not totally like second, like wars of choice, like maybe the Iran one is. But like when you have major countries fighting it out, that's because the contradiction that has been building for too long just could no longer sustain. Like the thing about the colonial era is there were so many parts of the world that hadn't been colonized. So everyone could just colonize.
Yeah.
And okay, this part's been taken by Britain. We'll just go next door and we'll just colonize that part and that can be ours. Oh, you're France. You're a bit later. Okay, you can go over there. Germany, you go over there. Italy, go over there. Everyone can have a bit, like the world's so big. Everyone can have a slice.
Yeah.
And then it gets to a certain point where, hold on, everyone's taken everything.
Yeah.
So the rising power, how do they move forward? Well, they have to break it up. They have to shake things up. And shaking things up means war.
Yeah. I mean, alternatively, you can go take the little bit that another country already took, like Greenland or whatever, or out war.
But then if you don't, but then the other side doesn't accept that. Well,
exactly.
Then, yeah. So like you have to redivide what's already been divided. And the world today is that America runs all of it politically, but then China runs so much of it economically, and China's the new player, and so they can go up, they can rise to a certain point, but we're seeing all the ways that America's trying to use to stop them. Well, if you're China, okay, maybe you play along for a while, but at a certain point, that contradiction is going to explode, and that's the kind of terrifying possibilities that we face. And World War, the deaths in world wars are not in the thousands, they're not in the tens of thousands, they're in the tens of millions, and a future world war, God knows like how that would
exactly.
manifest.
We've got nukes now, like Jesus,
and AI.
Yeah,
Palantir.
AI targeting.
What will
nukes.
What will Alec Carp do with? Yeah.
Don't want to think about it. But the reality is that war is not just something that people have accepted blindly or just not been able to resist and fight back against it. Actually, war is one of the things that has most often resulted in like rebellion and uprising. Some of the most important movements for the working class historically has been opposition to war. So the Russian Revolution happened because the contradictions of World War One, i.e. the death and destruction of ordinary human life, just got so bad that people could not deal with it anymore.
Yeah, they were fighting without shoes. They were fighting without bullets. They
everyone knew someone who was dying in the war, so they had to fight back. Or
and it was just a rejection of that logic.
Yeah, and then like the big, most recent example of like global working class resistance, or actually the 2011, but a recent one, the movements of the 60s, kicked off because of the Vietnam War and the fact that America was able to get away with dropping napalm on innocent people in the countryside. And, this kicked off an uprising in France, big movement in America, in Britain, in Germany, in Australia, etc., Italy.
Yeah, and the kind of the connections began to be drawn. Like we're fighting the class struggle here. Our working class kids are being sent to die over there. What have they done to us? Like, like the famous Muhammad Ali thing, like no Viet Cong ever called me, whatever.
Yeah.
And then and in America, like you've got all these black, because the American army's always been disproportionately black and brown because of economic conscription. It's such a poor country. It's one of their only reliable jobs. So it's disproportionately black and brown, but they're living in the Jim Crow era.
Yeah.
They don't have equal rights, and yet they're going and fighting in another country for freedom in America. So that contradiction exploded. So yeah, like both the experience of fighting and dying and the horrors of the economic privations. Like we're about to see a kind of small glimpse of that with the inflation, this that's going to be generated from this appalling war that Trump and Israel have just concocted out of nowhere. People are going to suffer and get impoverished as a result. Well, when you have big and long-lasting imperial conflicts, people suffer a lot more. So like in Germany during World War One, there was like a whole year where like the only vegetable and fruit available was turnips, and they were making coffee out of it. They were eating it.
I don't understand how you get coffee out of turnips.
Maybe you brew it for a long time. Anyway, it was like an extreme kind of crisis. And England, always just has cabbage and potatoes and stuff. So
that's their normal food.
Yeah, so
cabbage is good. And potatoes.
When you break the trade routes and you're prioritizing military conflict, like people really suffer, and it leads to rebellion.
And sometimes resistance happens in unconventional ways.
Like that's the really good bit, but then there's also other ways.
Like little bits. So take this tweet, for example. Anyone who attacks the UAE, and for not one reason at all, is a mortal enemy to the McGregors.
That's
that
great.
no? Okay,
That's pretty much. Is that? Yeah, I think that's kind of what we mean.
So this is Conor McGregor on
Is that
a
the
horse.
Che Guevara image of the 21st century?
Okay, I'm joking. Obviously, Conor McGregor is not a resistance to imperialism. But yeah, so I think people always find ways to fight back. And bringing it back to sort of like, you know, the role of socialists, because I think that there can be different types of resistance to imperialism. You know, sometimes it's people throwing things at shoes at presidents. Sometimes it's like, you know, journalists writing articles about, you know, the horrors of, you know, what's going on and exposing some of the just criminal aspects of what's taking place. But it's
Sometimes it's soldiers shooting their generals.
yeah, totally. But I mean, that's an example of one that can actually have an impact. You know, you can write as many fucking op-eds that you want, but it's only going to be working class resistance that's going to be the thing that can actually stop wars from taking place. Or in an ideal scenario, turning an imperialist war into a war of the working class against the ruling class and destroying the capitalist system that creates wars.
Yeah, that's important because obviously we support resistance to empire whenever it takes place and imperialism. But there's like the reality is that not all resistances are equal. And so there was a whole wave of anti-colonial movements that took place in the middle of last century. And the left supported them absolutely. And, you know, revolutionaries definitely did and socialists and so on. But like what we've actually been seeing in the last 10 years or so is like revolutions in those countries against those same leaderships. You know, like the Arab Spring was primarily targeted at the early anti-colonial leaderships, which still existed, the same people in some cases, the same institutions in others. The protest movement in Bangladesh, like the other year, you know, was targeting a party that had been in power, you know, basically since the formation of Bangladesh. Like, so, you know, the problem with supporting capitalist forces who are fighting against imperialism at times is that their fight is only temporary and inconsistent. Because what they're fighting for is a place in the world market. You know, they want a space where they can run a country, exploit a population, make decisions, you know, which we support. Like people should have the right to do that, you know, collectively as a people free from imperial occupation. But if you just satisfy yourself by creating a country, well, if that's a capitalist country, then you're going to still suffer from many, many problems. And in fact, what most of these new countries did was sell their populations to the world market by exploiting them hard and repressing them and so on. So countries like Vietnam have gotten rich by having a police state, you know, treatment of workers while, you know, offering a good condition for investment for foreign capital. Like this is not the kind of liberation that we're talking about when we're talking about anti-imperialism and independence and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So I think that there's a lot of really important like arguments and lessons for us today. So you can't ever trust a government or a country.
Yeah, or a capitalist.
Because these people are only acting in their own interest. There's no, like there isn't so I've been talking about how important the nation state is to capitalism, but the nation state is not important to the working class. Yeah. Like the nation state
it shouldn't be.
Well, yeah. The institution that oppresses working class people. And so capitalist nations are always acting in their own self-interest. And that means that for us, we're always opposed to wars that are carried out by one country against another.
Yeah, imperialist wars are not to be supported by any means. The other lesson is like Australia's role in all this as a mid-range power is something that we have to be critical of. We're not just like being dragged behind other wars in a sort of reluctant manner, but as a middle power, it's our whole strategy. And like other middle powers, like, you know, European powers, etc., it's our government hitching itself to another power which actually magnifies its own power. And so in that sense, like the European Union, which is sometimes posited as an alternative to America historically, is not an alternative. Australia definitely is not an alternative, but neither is Russia or China or Iran or anything like that. Like every country, even including the mid-range powers, they're in it for themselves, and their interests are totally counterposed to working class people.
And I have a little video to sort of show the way that Australia has hitched itself to America.
You love Hegseth.
I don't.
Upgrading infrastructure on air bases in Queensland and the Northern Territory that allows for additional U.S. bomber rotations.
That's exciting.
We're upgrading logistics and infrastructure in Darwin, So more U.S. Marines can do rotational deployments and
Great.
repositioning MV-22 Ospreys. This establishes new and resilient logistics networks across Australia.
That is so uplifting.
Yeah, I feel really inspired by that. But yeah, it's like this.
So we're like a storage ground for American killing machines.
I mean, haven't they already started to do the nuclear powered subs in Australian ports?
In WA, yeah.
So
Yeah, and even like New Zealand was like, absolutely not.
well, yeah, I mean that's what broke up the ANZUS thing,
Yeah.
wasn't it? Because New
Yeah.
Zealand was
Is
like,
that over?
Like that element of it. I mean,
Yeah.
like that's why they're
I'd
not
be
in
surprised.
AUKUS.
Yeah, okay.
yeah, that's yeah.
How would you do that? Our AUKUS is
That's probably why, to be honest.
yeah.
The HR department, the PR department
Like,
of AUKUS
sorry.
are like, sorry,
Sorry,
can't
you're
have you.
out.
But yeah, so I think like Hegseth sort of reeling off the different ways that the American military is going to be present in Australia shows you that this relationship is deep, it's tight, and it's not going anywhere.
Yeah, that's right.
Anyways, to wrap us off, the lesson from all of this is to only trust the power of workers, students, and the poor.
Yeah.
Because
Because I mean, like, it's just clear that it's like you can't sort of expect a capitalist nation to do anything in the interest of the working class and the oppressed. It's only the working class and the oppressed that can fight back against war, against the destruction of the planet, against just the sort of runaway capitalism that we're in at the moment.
Yeah, and the experience of the post-colonial struggles of last century is that even like just like capitalist forces leading legitimate liberation struggles, when they come to power, they don't achieve what people are fighting for. And so, you know, just having a few more capitalist nations in the world is not going to ease the oppression of the Palestinians or the Kurds or the myriad other groups around the world who are yet to even achieve the first sort of step in this whole thing of like having your own country. What actually needs to exist is a federation of socialist nations which do not give a shit about race, ethnicity, religion, anything like that, but are premised on the collaboration of workers as equals globally. And fighting for nothing short of that, I think, is the best way to ensure an end to war and oppression.
Riding out the party line.
Well, thanks so much for listening to The Party Line. Let us know if you liked our theory lesson.
Yeah, it feels a bit dense to me.
But we want to keep on making podcasts for you. And if you like the podcast, please like and subscribe, share with your friends, and join the Socialist Party.
yeah, and ask us if you want like another theory topic. Like,
Or if you don't want them at all.
yeah, or if you really fucking hate it.
If it's shit.
Or you want the socialist position on conscription and all that jazz.
Against.
I don't know. Like,
No, like against conscription, but like if we were conscripted.
Oh, yeah. I'd start a newspaper.
Yeah.
Like a soldier newspaper.
Yeah.
I'd maybe like dunk my face in ice every morning.
Stop.
Start like doing my jaw. What do they do to their jaw?
I think they do like mewing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll do that.
Yeah, and they do get that. They have a hammer and shit. Imagine if they gave you a gun in training, like you specifically.
Me,
not me
Annika.
or Omar or anything. Like you specifically.
What does that mean? Like what?
Like
You think
you'd
I couldn't?
fuck shit up.
No, I
You'd be an effective operator,
Yeah,
I think is the
totally.
point.
Oh, an effective operator.
You'd be like the guerrilla fighter. Kind
Yeah.
of.
I've always
I
said.
would follow
To
you
Kosciuszko.
to do anything.
Well, okay. Well, when World War III happens, join my regiment.